So, the United States mass deportation campaign that the American people overwhelmingly support, or not overwhelmingly, most Americans just don't vote, and most Americans just don't care what happens. The government can do whatever it wants, as far as they're concerned with voting. But the majority of voters supported this Build the Wall campaign in 2016, and they supported this mass deportation plan in 2024. So let's do some quick math. So it says as of 2022, 11 million. But I was looking at something yesterday that said like in 2023, like 3 million came. So we can go with the 15 million figure.
Once you stop Kamala Harris's open border policies, you've got to do something with the people who are already here. And I think that you take a sequential approach to it. You are going to have to deport some people. Once you stop Kamala Harris's open border policies, you've got to do something with the people who are already here. And I think that you take a sequential approach to it. You are going to have to deport some people. If you're not willing to deport a lot of people, you're not willing to have a border when there are 20 million.
And a sequential approach, by the way, is like a stage to something more extreme. So they think this is the first stage of something more extreme they're going to do later on. But thank God the US is an inept failed state, a declining empire. And so this is real. They're throwing all they have at it right now. And they're deporting like maybe like 1 to 2,000 people. Like how many people have since 2025? Anyways, it's like a maybe 1 to 2,000. We're gonna do some math in a second, but let's just hear this 1 million number, and then we'll start doing math to see how little they are actually going to ever do. How many people are not gonna get deported, which is good. They're not gonna get rid of them all, but let's start with 1 million apparently. But yeah, this whole sequential thing, it's like either you're inept and harmless, or you're dangerous and doing the first stage in like a genocide against illegal immigrants, like who are Native Americans, by the way.
Illegal aliens in our country.
10 to 15 million people, this is like, I mean...
Well, John, I think that's the wrong attitude to take of it. Okay, so there are people who are already here, and I think that you take a sequential approach to it. You are going to have to deport some people. If you're not willing to deport a lot of people, you're not willing to have a border when there are 20 million illegal aliens in our country.
10 to 15 million people, this is like, I mean...
Well, John, I think that's the wrong attitude to take of it. Okay, so
there are doors and ask people for their papers.
Again, but
what do you do?
let me finish. I think this is the wrong attitude towards it, right? There's 20 million people here illegally.
It's about attitudes, it's about feelings. It's about the American people frothing at the mouth to get rid of the Native Americans that somewhere in their ancestral like lineage, they're like, it's their great-great-grandparents had to deal with actually seeing Native Americans around. But not that there's 10 to 15 million illegal immigrants. Now people in the Southeast that Andrew Jackson in the 1830s and through the 19th century did numerous campaigns of extirpation and deportation and removal against the 5 civilized tribes, by the way, who were they were basically the first nation building project that the United States empire ever had. And the 5 civilized tribes were completely on board with the US government. But the settlers and then the settlers were so vicious, they elect someone like Andrew Jackson, then they all get deported. I don't know if, as much as the American people have a similarly vicious and visceral reaction to seeing the Native Americans that are illegal immigrants as their ancestors did in the 1830s to 1880s, particularly. Trump isn't Andrew Jackson. You know, the US isn't manifest we aren't in manifest destiny anymore. But Trump's trying to do this manifest destiny thing. He's trying to expand the US's territory. A part of that is the Native American figure is illegal immigrants who are indigenous to the Americas, who have been placed here in this continent or these continents since time immemorial, thousands of years, like before the Bible. Like,
you start with what's achievable, you do that, and then you go on to what's achievable from there. I think that if you deport a lot of violent criminals, and frankly, if you make it harder to hire illegal labor, which undercuts the wages of American workers, I think you go a lot of the way to solving the illegal immigration problem. But look, President Trump is absolutely right. You cannot have a border unless you're willing to deport some people. I think it's interesting that people focus on, well, how do you deport 18 million people? Let's start with 1 million. That's where Kamala Harris has failed, and then we can go from there. Once you stop...
How do you deport 18 million people? Let's start with 1 million. So, let me get a rough figure of how many. Is there a number? So, quote unquote mass deportation, looking at WOLA, which is the Advocacy for Human Rights in America's group, I guess. Washington Office of Latin America. So, according to them, quote unquote mass deportation. An executive order mandated the creation of a Homeland Security Task Forces, like to manage interior deportation operations in all 50 states. It calls for a dramatic expansion of detention facilities, etc. It calls for cutting federal funds to... It requires all non-citizens to register with the US government presenting their fingerprints. Failure to do so makes you a criminal. It's a crime to not go and get your number while they're trying to deport you, and maybe worse. So since 2011, ICE has been prevented from entering sensitive facilities like churches, schools, and hospitals. But it's been eliminated by the administration. So they want to do raids in churches, schools, and hospitals. And by the way, when some schools said, like, the Border Patrol deny they... Yeah, so they're literally doing, like, they're just lying. ICE denies involvement at Chicago school state leaders because they tried to go in, they were denied, and now they're saying it wasn't even them. But anyways, ICE personnel can go into churches, schools, and hospitals now, according to the big guy. – Expedited removal, whatever. Apparently, there's like 400,000 people who have already been approved, or like a couple 100,000 immigrants who have already been ordered to be deported. But their administration is gonna be lucky if they just get rid of the immigrants that are already getting deported, or that are already set for deportation. So the amount of people who have little or no remaining recourse in the immigration system is like over 1 million just from Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and El Salvador. Okay, so on January 23, it carried out 538 arrests, and it deported 176 on 2 days earlier. So let's round it up to 1,000, which I don't. They're trying as much as they can to deport everyone possible. If they can get up to 1,000 deportations a day, which is more than they're already doing. So 1,000 people times 7 days. So 7,000 a week times 52 weeks. Oh, whoops. Okay, so 7,000 a week times 52 is 350 or something. 364,000. And so that's 1 year. And so in their whole administration, if they're deporting 1,000 people a day, they'll get to 1.5 million. And that's being, I like put it up to 1,000 a day when it's 538 arrests, 300 deportations, like at the current levels, I guess. Biden era levels, 300 people got deported a day. If a Trump era is 1,000 people a day, which he probably won't. Did he build the wall? No. Is he gonna? It's gonna be similarly limited from the promises. It's not gonna be promises made, promises kept on this thing. Thank God. Glory to the illegals. And the Pope Francis said, by the way, the mass deportation will be a disgrace. It's not the way to solve things. Oh yeah, and they're calling like it an invasion. Anyways. Let's say, so Vance settled on an 18 million figure in that last video. So how many people would you have to deport a day? Wait, where's the like actual? So 18 million divided by 4 divided by 52. Oh, sorry. So 86,000 people in a week to actually deport everyone, which is what their whole build the wall style, deport them all promises, which is 12,000 people a day. I don't know if there's even 12,000 people a day coming into our country.
Once you stop Kamala Harris,
and they're doing it all for us, but like but yeah, like look at this. So like
major developments on immigration.
Like remember Afghanistan when they were packed in like sardines? You're gonna deport 13,000 people a day with like a $500,000 flight for like 100 people. You're not gonna do that actually. But everyone's like riding the high on thinking they will do something along those lines. They just haven't thought about it to realize you have to deport almost 100,000 people a week to deport them all. To build the wall, you have to spend $5 gazillion or whatever. And that's why it won't happen. But it is still bad. Afghanistan pullout. Yeah.
Over 800 Afghans amassed in the...
You're not even deporting 13,000 people a day, packing them in like this. But you're really not doing it like this. You're not doing that at all. This is just an expensive photo op. A very expensive... Like, how much does... Like, what kind of plane even is this?
An Osprey aircraft. And for the first time, southern border, a military buildup underway. The first of some 1,500 active duty troops have arrived. Marines from Camp Pendleton arriving with heavy equipment, an Osprey aircraft.
Osprey? That's not... This is like a C-17, right? This is just like... Those flights are probably really expensive too, but those are just for like... Right? They don't change planes like all the time, right? It was a C-17 in Afghanistan. It looks like a C-17 to me. Where's like a view from the back? It's all views from the front. Yeah, dude, it has like this whole like little flap going on. This is a C-17 or like a variant. So like how much is a C-17 flight cost? Which Colombia, by the way, it might have been this flight specifically that they flew all the way to Colombia and they just said, we're not going to let you land. Was the US going to invade Colombia now and just make them a deportation like territory, Australia style? Cost per flight hour. Yeah, let's go. The cost per flight hour is $23,000. There's not even 23,000 people on this plane. And we need 23,000 people gone every single day to deport them all? $23,000. Let's say it's what's a I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a C-17, but anyways. Let's say the whole ordeal happened with Colombia turning away the plane of deportees. Let's say that whole ordeal took like 18 hours. Because you had to fly there, you had to like... Or how long can these stay in the air anyways? Airtime capacity, is that like a thing? 102 so yeah, this is actually just like 100 people. This is probably like less than 100 immigrants right now, and then like 20 or 30 like staff who are also getting paid. I mean, I guess that's probably factored into the cost flight per hour. Flight hour capacity. Yeah, flight time. I mean, on one tank. Without refueling. Unrefueled range of 2,400 nautical miles. Oh, but the Globemaster 3, I don't know. Oh, with a payload and a full fuel load. How fast does a C-17 fly? 450 knots. How the heck do I figure out how long it can stay in the air? And give me how many hours? Whatever, it doesn't matter. So it's $23,000 an hour. To fly this thing. Let's just say it took 18 hours, whatever. It's like it's like a 500,000 time. It's a 500,000 flight every time they go up and go down type thing. Like at least a 500,000. Like 250,000. I mean, that's a lot. It's like 400,000 to $1,000,000 per one of these flights to deport less than 100 people. Let's go. Like, so 100 people. So this is one of these flights. One of these flights. He times it times 100. Wait, no. Divide it by 100. Because that's per deportee. Yeah. So it's like $4,000 for one of these guys to be on this flight. They're like thousands of dollars. We can probably say it's the cost of them. And then the C-17 has to like fly back too. But I mean, if they weren't allowed to land, I mean, did they get like a payload in the air too, which obviously makes it more expensive. Anyways. And so that's per person for that 100 people. So $4,000. And so $4,000 per person to be deported in this way. And let's just do the million figure. So if we start with 1,000,000 immigrants, that's 100,000, that's 1,000,000. That's why doesn't it put the commas in? Come on, bro. That's like $4 trillion, right? Or is that $4 billion? Yeah, 4 billion. So $4 billion to deport 1,000,000 illegal immigrants like this, which actually 4 billion does actually sound as expensive as it could be. But if we start with 1,000,000, so then we times that by 10 to get 10 million. So what is this? Yeah, so now it's $4 trillion. And so we're getting up to like $10 trillion if they're actually going to deport them all, of like 15 million immigrants. And obviously not all of it. I mean, it's not just going to be the C-17 deportation thing, but that's what they're doing. They did that for some of them, like these guys. And it's like Afghanistan, the same thing. Give me a second. So JD Vance says the first, let's start with 1 million. That's the first step, and then we can see what we can do from there. When JD Vance or whoever else realizes they can't just spend $10 trillion to deport them all on C-17s, he's going to figure out some other things they can do to illegal immigrants. And, you know, I'm not sure what he's going to figure out to do instead, but he wants it to be cheaper, and he still wants to get rid of the illegal immigrants. So it's going to be something worse, probably. Worse. I mean, there are worse things than this. I mean, then this flight, for example, this was a worse flight. Like, there are worse things than this. And I don't know. I mean, they're Native Americans, and the U.S. has a track record with Native Americans in doing very bad things to them to get rid of them. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but whenever one of them realizes they can't do a $10 trillion deportation campaign, but the American voters apparently, or at least a lot of the government officials, they want to fix the broken immigration system. And that basically means we have to get rid of the illegals somehow, unless they want to give them amnesty and citizenship, which is should be doing. It's a lot cheaper. And, it's just way less morally wrong to give someone amnesty and citizenship than to deport them at the cost of $4,000 or get rid of them some other way, which is what the U.S. has historically done to Native Americans, which illegal immigrants are. Anyways. But yeah. So that's the only thing that really matters from that. It's just, I mean, this guy's just like, I've seen this going around, and I mean, I could see someone saying something like this for real if you know, they were just kind of, I mean, I'm not saying this guy is like a planted figure, but like, he's the only one with his face showing.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal
convictions. Can I get the raw footage?
Yo, Biden forever, bro. You feel me?
In recent.
You feel me?
But he's saying, fuck Trump, you feel me? Biden forever, bro. Like, it's actual controlled opposition. He's either a useful idiot or a controlled opposition. And like, he's the only one whose face was allowed to be shown, which is kind of crazy. But they didn't even show the whole interview. Wonder if there's a raw thing. What the heck? Wait, what's this? Let's go.
NBC News has learned Haitian migrants who were deported to Haiti today attacked pilots and immigration officers on another flight after it landed in Port-au-Prince.
So dude, after landing? Never mind, this is cool.
Plane carrying single adult men were released from the aircraft to Haitian authorities on the airport tarmac. Then, NBC News reports several of those men stormed another recently arrived jet carrying families. The Biden administration.
Whatever. Is this the whole clip? Apparently it's a Fox News exclusive. I don't know.
Salvadoran illegal.
Yeah, dude, it's such like a... I don't know.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
And he has like an American accent. Like, when did he leave Haiti? Like when he was like 8 or something? He doesn't, because people, like, Haitian men speaking, like, they speak French. Like, they don't really sound like this guy. Haitian accents.
Gotta give them credit because they're trying, you know what I'm saying? And speaking of getting credit, fellas, can we give credit to these ladies out here tonight?
But yeah, he has more like a Queen's English type of English.
Choke the rice. Babe, did you choke the rice?
And I mean, he's like
I'm not
funny.
going back to Haiti.
Like, this guy, he's like 21 Savage, who's apparently from the UK, but was like, he's like is this guy like a dreamer? Is this guy like actually a dreamer? Or is he a Fed? I can't tell.
I'm not going back to Haiti. So, you feel me?
But he speaks like, he has an American accent. And this is...
Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
You see that video, I'm curious, what do you think?
I'm not going back to Haiti.
So let's see. I guess this is the borders are. If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table. You're on the chopping block. Bro.
Well, you're wrong.
And so they're very vicious in their rhetoric, but yeah, they're not gonna spend $10 trillion to deport them all, and over 4 years, if they get to 4 million, that's probably, they might do 1/3 of the 15 million here. But even that's like Trump basically building the wall, and he didn't do that last time. So
he's going back to Haiti. I can tell him that.
He's going back to Haiti.
One of the very first appointments Donald Trump made after winning the election in November was tapping one man to be what he calls his border czar. Tom Homan is a former Border Patrol agent and acting director of ICE with decades of experience in Republican and Democratic administrations. I sat down with him this week and began our conversation by asking him about the role of the U.S. military.
We got military on the border, not only helping us with departure flights on military planes, but they're helping to build infrastructure. They're putting them constantly.
And dude, what a weak guy. He's just an old, like, look, this gerontocracy that is the U.S. is so lame. Like, he's dude, like, his speaking voice is just weak. Like, he's like RFK Jr., like 20%.
Where they're down there to create a secure border and lock that border down. And DOD's helped administrations before, but not at this level. So it's a force multiplier, and it's sending a strong signal to the world. Our border's closed.
So is this what we will see every single day, ending in what the president has promised is millions and millions being deported?
Yes, but you can see the numbers steadily increase, the number of arrests nationwide as we open up the aperture. Right now it's concentrating on public safety threats, national security threats. That's a smaller population. So we're going to do this on a priority base, as President Trump's promised, but as that aperture...
And concentrate on those populations, but they already have collateral deportations. So, like, some guy in your restaurant happens to be on some watch list, the whole restaurant's getting deported.
Aperture opens, there'll be more arrests nationwide.
When you talk about the aperture opening, the estimates of perhaps those who have been convicted or arrested in the past, 700,000 to over 1 million. So after you do that, then you go after everybody who is there illegally.
If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table. Because it's not okay to violate laws of this country. You got to remember, every time you enter this country illegally, you violate a crime under Title 8 United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem. And that's why I'm hoping those who are in the country illegally who have not been ordered removed by the federal judge should leave.
Well, you are emphasizing...
Wait, let me re-listen to that. Is he just saying leave voluntarily?
Illegally.
If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table. Because
you're on the table. Or deportation.
It's not okay to...
Or worse, when they realize they don't want to spend $10 trillion on deportation, so they're going to find a cheaper and more direct method of getting rid of the Native Americans, like the U.S. has always done.
Violate laws of this country. You got to remember, every time you enter this country...
Except the U.S. has... The federally recognized natives have citizenship, and we got amnesty and citizenship. So should the dreamers and probably all the rest of them too, because the other option is going to get uglier and uglier, because this deportation thing is not going to fly every day for 4 years.
Illegally, you violated a crime under Title 8 United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem. And that's why I'm hoping those who are in the country illegally who have not been ordered removed by the federal judge should leave.
Well, you are emphasizing...
Yeah, and so he's saying anyone who... he's just saying that categorically, they're called illegals. Categorically, they are criminals. at least with how we're speaking, our country views them. Categorically, even the dreamers are criminals because they don't have documents. They're categorically criminal. They're categorically illegal. And so when people like, so I mean, that's just, I mean, at least he's being honest about it. You're all on the table, even if you were brought here, you know, this freaking Korean guy that got deported. This guy was categorically illegal when he was adopted from a war the U.S. lost in Korea. He was adopted by some American couple, and his foster parents or whoever didn't get him his citizenship. So Trump deported him like 8 years ago. National security threat. A guy who's a refugee of a war as a child, but now he's living a good life. Like apparently he's in like Mexico now. Oh, I guess a different one. Wait, he was a veteran too? What? An Iraq war veteran? So, you know, this guy's on the table. Some guy who's literally innocent and a victim of our broken immigration system. But he was still the one who had to suffer the price for it.
You go after national security threats. You have said no one's off the table. If you're in the country illegally, you better be looking over your shoulder. You should be afraid and start packing now. Is that what you're doing to get hotel workers out or people working on farms, that they'll be so scared they just leave?
Look, I think if you're in the country legally, it's not okay. It's not okay to violate laws of this country.
It is okay, actually. All the illegal immigrants that are doing it is okay. It's better than okay. It's awesome. The southeast of the United States looks like Native America again. You think it wouldn't have happened after the Andrew Jackson Trail of Tears thing. You think it wouldn't look native ever again. But then we got this little thing called mass immigration. And so, you know, these guys, they hate Native Americans just like Andrew Jackson did, that's for sure. But I don't know if they're going to do... I don't know if they're going to be able to succeed in the same way he did with extirpating the Southeast of its indigenous American presence to the degree it was.
Have millions of people standing in line, taking the test, doing their background investigation, paying the fees that want to come in the right way.
Let's talk about the arrests so far. Numbers.
Yeah, and coming in the right way is paying the fees, doing the salute, checking the box that says you have never been a part of a political organization and you condemn. One, you have to say you're basically apolitical, but two, you have to say you're against authoritarianism. You have to take political positions to get a citizenship in the U.S. In line with the U.S.'s policy of democracy against dictatorship or whatever and authoritarianism. Do you love freedom? Like, but that's the right way is some bullshit DMV visit. That's what makes all the immigrants, the legal ones, that's what makes all of them better than the illegal ones. The illegal ones who walked on their own 2 feet and came in a much similar way, much more similar in the sense that, much more similar to the way this guy's family probably came here. He was probably on a boat. It probably wasn't with a bunch of papers in his pocket so that the border would send his family away. It was probably, you know, it wasn't legal or illegal. It was just the thing. So anyways, but yeah, the thing that makes all the legal immigrants so good and righteous is that they're willing to stand in line for 5 years at the DMV instead of just walking over and actually contributing to society like our...
In the test, doing their background investigation, paying the fees that want to come in the right way.
Let's talk about the arrests so far. Numbers released the first day were over...
So, you know, ask any of these white people, did your family come to this country the white way? You're European. If you take a DNA test, it's going to say your ancestors from Europe. If the illegal immigrants take a DNA test, it's going to say their ancestors from the Americas. Ask did their family come the right way? They're either not going to know how their family came here. They're going to say, my family did come here the right way, and when their family like did genocide to come here, or were settlers like on the frontier killing Indians and hating and holding slaves, like doing Jim Crow, like they're gonna say that's somehow right, or they'll admit my family didn't come here the right way. Who am I to say someone else has to come the right way? Because there wasn't even a right way established until like the past like 50 years or something. Before then, people kind of just did it.
500, and there were reports that one was a suspected terrorist, others were gang members. Were all of the people who were arrested on day one, as far as you know, convicted criminals or those who had been arrested before?
No. Let me explain that. There are collateral arrests. Where the collateral arrests happen? Sanctuary cities.
So they're targeting sanctuary cities with collateral arrests, which is a funny way of saying collective punishment. Sanctuary cities are being targeted, and the immigrants are being collectively punished through collateral arrests.
Where the collateral arrests happen? Sanctuary cities. And this is important we understand that. Sanctuary cities lock us out of the jails. So instead of ICE being able to...
They lock you out of the jails, they lock you out of the schools. And then your ICE claims it wasn't them. Maybe it's the new department that was just made. Like create the Department of Security Task Forces, Homeland Security Task Forces. Maybe it was those guys who went to the school and were turned away, since ICE is claiming it wasn't them.
Arrest the bad guy, the criminal alien, in the safety and security of the jail.
And so it's so two-faced. The criminal alien, you think they're categorically all criminals by virtue of being in this country. It's just so two-faced. It's
the officer's safe, the alien's safe, and the public's safe. Sanctuary cities release them back in the community, which endangers the community, putting the criminal alien back in the community. But when we find him, he's going to be with others, most likely. Many times they're with others. If they're in the country illegally, they're coming too.
But were these arrests all in sanctuary cities? It doesn't appear so on the first day.
The collaterals, many more. I don't have the exact breakdown, but again,
so the arrests in
Massachusetts,
Massachusetts, in Chelsea, Massachusetts, which the governor said it's great to arrest the criminals who are convicted, but were there people taken there as well who were not convicted? Were
sure
they, as you say, collaterals?
I'm sure they are.
You talk about these numbers expanding. 500 the first day. What do you think you can get up to?
As many as we can get.
What can happen at this point, given your manpower?
Look, I think we're in the beginning stages. We're bringing more resources into this operation. As a whole of government, we're going to have DOJ assisting us, and like the DOD piece, helping build infrastructure, helping the transportation.
Oh, dude, the DOD piece, dude, this is such like military jargon. It's like strategic. We're at the table. We're talking about this piece and that piece, but it's also like HR, like conference speaker talk, the piece, the DOD piece, the military piece, like, what's the military gonna do? Are they gonna just kill them? Are they gonna say, dig the hole, climb the wall? Like Gulag style? Climb the wall, swim the river, cross the Rio, go back to where you came from, dig the hole. Freedom and democracy, the American public, the less than half of them that vote, overwhelmingly support and thinks it somehow makes sense. Because, I don't know, they've never asked themselves, how did my family come here? Was that the right way? And if it wasn't the right way, which it probably wasn't, what right do I, as a descendant of people who came here in a very wrong way, to say you have to come here a right way, which is just standing in line at the DMV for 5 years?
That takes ICE, badges and guns, out of those duties and puts them on the street.
I want to go back to who you're deporting, aside from.
Yeah, and so he's trying to take ICE, like immigration and custom. He's trying to take away immigration and custom enforcement and bring in the military.
Transportation.
Are we in martial law right now? They're gonna have to declare martial law to actually try to get through this whole deportation thing. You know, that you can't be in like a peacetime civilian government and deport 15 million people over 4 years. They're gonna, but they're not gonna do that because they're, you know.
That takes ICE, badges and guns out of those duties and puts them on the street.
I want to go back to who you're deporting.
Oh, he's saying the military is gonna help with the administration of. Wait, what?
Beginning stages, we're bringing more resources into this operation. As a whole of government, we're
So
going
the DOJ and the DOD helping build infrastructure, helping the transportation. Oh yeah, I mean, I guess it would. It's the same plane. It's just it was not packed, but yeah. And so ICE can do more direct confrontations with border crosses instead of focusing on administration and transportation of deportations. I mean, I guess I understand that logic, but it's
guns out of those duties and puts them on the street.
I want to go back to who you're deporting, aside from the long list.
I'm just a badge and a gun. Just following orders, sir. What do we do when we get sent to The Hague? You just tell them you were following orders. You were just a badge and a gun. Let us handle the intent.
Executive actions. The administration said it will no longer tell ICE agents they have to avoid sensitive locations, including schools, hospitals, churches. Benjamin Huffman, the acting Homeland Security Secretary, said in a statement, criminals will no longer be able to hide in America's schools and churches to avoid arrest.
Criminals hiding in schools? Yeah, they think all the children are criminals too for being here. They're illegals. Sorry, they're categorically illegal. They're categorically criminal, according to these guys. And so hiding in America's schools. It's like, bro, they're doing like when Israel's always like, what self-respecting country wouldn't do the exact insane shit we're doing? The USA is like, oh yeah, we have criminals hiding in our schools, hospitals, and churches too. There's an immigration tunnel built under the churches in El Paso. The cartel is hiding in tunnels under America's schools on its southern and northern border. The cartels have tunnels and command centers under schools.
What criminals are hiding in schools?
Look,
Middle schools, elementary schools. You going to go into those?
How many MS-13 members are aged 14, 17?
Oh, and so he's saying it's a bunch of gang members who are teenagers. Probably less than you think, but I mean, you know, as Draco said, how you join a gang when you're 25. You know, people who join gangs, it's usually when they're kids, right? Or like very shortly after they're the age of majority.
Many of them. So, look, if it's a national security threat, public safety threat.
So, I mean, he's not wrong, but that's crazy. So we're saying the MS-13 teenager, bro. Wait, so
and what you need to understand is a case by case. Name another agency, another law enforcement agency that has those type of requirements that they can't walk into a school or.
I'm a cartel dreamer. I got ice on my back, but I still got a Beamer. I'm a cartel dreamer. I'm 16. I was brought here when I was like 5, and now I'm a part of a gang, maybe. Dude, it's literally those same MS-13 kid. They're probably dreamers, bro. Like, what the heck?
Or doctor's office or a medical campus.
If they even exist. I mean, I guess some of them could have been brought later, but like, I mean, how
The agencies have those standards. These are well-trained officers with a lot of discretion, and when it comes to sensitive location, there's still going to be supervisory review. So it's not like it's an open issue. But ICE officers should have discretion to decide if a national security threat or a public safety threat is in one of these facilities, then there should be an option for them to make the arrest.
But someday you could go into those schools and grab people who are just in the country.
Grab people. Dude, why say grab children? He just admitted how many 14 to 17-year-olds are gang members. Some of them. But they're still children. But now they're just people.
Illegally.
On a case-by-case basis, depending who they are, what the circumstances are. It's never.
I mean, he already said the collateral thing is like they don't even have to be criminals. It's just anyone who's here legally, you're on the table. He already said that.
It's never a zero game.
You know that this creates fear in the immigrant community.
Why is she smiling? It creates fear. Is that funny?
Fear in the immigration.
What is that smile? It creates fear. Is it good they're scared? Is that what you want to deep down? You want Native Americans to be scared?
Circumstances are.
What is this?
It's never a zero game.
You know that this creates fear.
I've never seen so much joy on this geriatric's face as when she said fear. Like, imagine saying the word fear and perfectly ending it into a smile. Like, fear. The R of fear instantly bending into a smile. Ghoul. Ghoul. Media ghoul.
In the immigrant community. The chair of the U.S. Conference of Bishops Committee said turning places of care, healing, and solace into places of fear and uncertainty for those in need while endangering the trust between pastors, providers, educators, and the people they serve will not make our communities safer.
Well, look, here's I think. If Congress has a job to do, we're enforcing the laws Congress enacted and the President signed. If they don't like it, change the law.
Wait. Why is he talking about Congress?
Our communities safer.
Well, look, here's I think. If Congress has a job to do.
So he just has nothing to say about the church. He's just like, well, it's not really on us.
We're enforcing the laws Congress enacted and the President signed. If they don't like it, change the law. I find it hard to believe.
Congress didn't do the executive order trying to end birthright citizenship for so-called anchor babies. Trump did that. That wasn't Congress, that was an executive order. This whole invasion that's been declared, that was an executive order. That wasn't Congress. Congress has a job to do. We're just enforcing the law. Are the executive orders not a change, at least of interpretation of the law as it was standing into something much different? But now it's on the Congress. They don't like it. Why did no one have a problem with the 300 a day Biden was deporting? Or I don't know. Anyways.
Any member of Congress is telling us not to enforce the law that they enacted and they fund us to do.
But opening up to anyone who's in the country illegally and going into schools and grabbing them, does that kids, adults?
The message needs to be clear.
He already said it was kids when he said that a lot of 14 to 17-year-olds are gang members. Is she even like here? She just has like her script and like whatever he says, she's like, are you?
Consequences of entering the country illegally. If we don't show those consequences, you're never going to fix the border problem.
Estimates are that there are 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country right now. How can you possibly afford to deport all of those people?
Well, I'll leave it up to Congress. You know, I think Congress, the president has a mandate. This is the #1 issue that people voted on. I think Congress has a mandate to give us money we need. What price you put on national security?
More detention centers?
What price do you put on national security? No price is too high. Okay.
What price you put on all these young ladies?
What price you put on a white America? What price you put on the Southeast without Native Americans in it? Or at least not a visible presence of them.
Been raped and murdered and burned alive. What price you put?
Oh, yeah. Bro.
On that. What price you put on Lincoln Riley's life? What price you put on national security? Like I just explained.
Laken Riley's life, whose dad said her name was being used. Well, I guess, oh yeah, the Laken Riley Act passed, right? Oh, maybe that's what he was saying. It's the, if you don't like, yeah, because the Laken Riley thing is law. Congress already did that. I mean, they just did that. That was them doing their job to fulfill Trump's mandate, as you call it, to deport millions of people. But what price you put on Laken Riley? Her dad doesn't put a price on her name and doesn't go around selling it to people in pursuit of political aims. That's what you do. You put a price on Laken Riley's name, and her own dad has called it out. Her dad doesn't put a price on her name. But you're putting a price on it and acting like it justifies what you're doing.
When you have a surge like this, we don't secure that border. That's when national security threats enter the country. That's when sex trafficking goes up. That's when, that's when.
So national security threats, they're terrorists. Sex trafficking goes up, they're rapists. What about murderers?
The fentanyl comes in, it kills 250,000 Americans. I don't put a price on that.
And on those detention centers, do you need more beds? I think there's
Absolutely.
41,000 now, 100,000. So where do you get?
He says he doesn't put a price on it, but as we went over earlier in the stream, if they do it C-17 style, it's like $4,000 per person on that flight. It's $23,000 per flight hour. It's going to take thousands and thousands of flight hours to deport 10 million people. And the rough estimate I came up with no knowledge on the subject, was $10 trillion.
Those beds?
I think he would put a price on that.
Do you build more camps? Do you do this military installations in Texas and elsewhere?
A little bit of everything. We can build offsite facilities. We can expand our contracts to outside contractors. So yeah, we're going to need more ICE beds, a minimum of 100,000.
Oh, wow. He did the private prison meme. Maybe AOC and all of them were onto something. We're going to put contracts to outside contractors, the private prison meme.
Well, Congress needs to come to the table quick and give us the money we need to secure that border.
Let's talk about those flights again. With the host countries, you flew all of those people back.
And he's like basically directing Congress to just give us the money to do what we want. But he's also like, well, if they don't like the law, then so Congress passes the laws, but they also pass the money. But they have to support the executive.
All of the people arrested on the first day, for instance, repatriated. And what about those countries that won't take them back?
Oh, they'll take them back.
What do you mean by that?
We got President Trump coming to power. President Trump puts America first. Mexico didn't want to do a Remain in Mexico program. Under the first administration, they did it. They didn't want to put military in the southern border. They did it.
How do you convince them?
El Salvador didn't want to take MS-13 members back. It took President Trump 48 hours to make that happen.
Yeah, El Salvador has some guy that loves Trump. But, he can just bring that up and pretend like it's a W. It's like, El Salvador would do anything for whatever his name is.
Trump's going to put America first. And if it doesn't, then we'll place my third safe country.
All appointments to the CBP app have been canceled. That is a legal way to claim asylum.
So if they don't take them back, which first he said they'll take them back, but if they don't take them back, they'll put them in a third safe country. So they'll just take them, a country they're not even from, they'll just take them there. Their country of origin won't take them back.
And get in the country. So what should people do
who
are seeking asylum?
But it ain't right, but, it's not our problem anymore. Now it's their problem. It's not a problem. Give them amnesty and citizenship. And then there's the same problem society always has, but there isn't the 10 million illegal problem.
How do you do it?
Go to the embassy, go to port of entry. Do it the legal way. You shouldn't come to this country and ask to get asylum, and the first thing you do is break our laws by entering illegally.
So tell me what the definition of success is over the next 6 months, over the next year, by the end of the administration. What is mission accomplished?
Again, these whiteys, they didn't come here legally. They didn't come here a right way. They just came here. There isn't a right or wrong way. There's a socially constructed right way to come here, which is standing in line at the DMV for 5 years. But that doesn't mean it's wrong to just come here anyways. They're saying it's wrong. They're saying it's illegal. They're saying it's criminal to just like come to our country and like, you know, just come here and not go to the port of entry or whatever. But if that's so wrong, wouldn't they be wrong for being in this country? Oh, well, they were born here. Well, I thought that didn't matter. If your ancestor came here the wrong way, they can't anchor their, you know, you shouldn't be anchored to this country if it's, you know, it was wrong. It's wrong you're here. Because you were born from someone who came here a wrong kind of way. You white Americans, you neo-Jacksonians trying to do a Trail of Tears to 15 million people who are indigenous to the Americas. You people who hate seeing the Southeast look like America again, indigenous Americans again, after Andrew Jackson, you neo-Jacksonites.
As many public safety threats off the street as possible.
You colonizers. You...
Watching illegal alien crime in the United States decrease. Ending it. Deporting every illegal alien gang member in this country, including Trendawa and MS-13. Making our country safe. When we see the crime rate from illegal aliens go down, that's a success. Every public safety threat we remove from this country is a success. Every national security threat that we find removed from the country is a success. There's no number on it. So my success...
Oh, we've already succeeded. We've already kept the promises. Is it going to be called a failure when you don't get rid of all of them?
It's going to be based on what...
When the immigration system is still broken? Like it has been since like Obama or earlier. Every president says the immigration system is broken. Everyone comes in saying they're going to fix it. They deport a bunch of people while they're at it. And then the problem remains the same.
Congress, give us.
They're like similar.
More money, the better we're going to do.
I notice you didn't put in that list of things that will be mission accomplished and success, getting every immigrant who is in the country illegally out. Why not?
Because I'm being realistic. We can do what we can with the money we have.
So there we go. He's being realistic. He knows they're not going to deport them all. They knew they weren't going to build the wall. Let's go.
Try to be efficient, but with more money we have, the more we can accomplish. If I don't have the money to remove that millions of people, I'm not going to sit here and... One thing, no one can say I haven't been frank in everything I've said. Our success every day is taking a public safety threat off the streets or getting a national security threat out of here.
And our thanks to...
What did she say where that was published?
One of the very...
Our laws by entering illegal.
So tell me what the definition of success is over the next 6 months, over the next year, by the...
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood that. I thought you actually like published something somewhere.
Pete Hegseth, it was a tie. Bipartisan opposition, smallest margin since the job was created. You would break that tie.
Pete Hegseth, who, by the way, said if he got confirmed, he'll never have a drink again. He's probably already had a drink. He probably had a drink the night he got confirmed with all of his buddies.
on quite a lot, and there was a flurry of activity on, and that has to do with immigration.
Sure.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops this week condemned some of the executive orders signed by President Trump, specifically those allowing immigration and customs enforcement to enter churches and to enter schools. Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
Well, let me address this. Of course, if you have a person who is convicted of a violent crime, whether they're an illegal immigrant or a non-illegal immigrant, you have to go and get that person to protect the public safety. That's not unique to immigration. But let me just address this particular issue, Margaret, because as a practicing Catholic, I was actually heartbroken by that statement. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over 100...
This guy's a Catholic, but he married a cheat. You're Catholic? Well, I guess the Catholics, they do go all over the place and mingle with the locals, to put it lightly. Wait, now I want to see... Like, dude, this is your kids, bro. This is the anti-immigration... Dude, look... Dude. Dude, this kid is probably like on TikTok and he's like, bro, dude, I'm gonna end up in The Hague too.
J.D. Vance's son takes the spotlight at the presidential inauguration. During the presidential inauguration of Donald Trump on January 20th, Vice President J.D. Vance's son, Vivek, was less enthusiastic. One can be seen pacing back and forth while holding onto a teddy bear.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Similar sentiments about the event.
It's like, how does this guy's kids look like this? But he's the anti-immigration guy. Oh, but he's a practicing Catholic who doesn't like what the bishops... He doesn't... Dude, he's an apostate. This guy isn't a practicing Catholic. Dude, this... Like... What? Dude, let's look it up. So, J.D. Vance probably says... He's probably an apostate who calls himself a Catholic, but it's literally not. He was raised in evangelical Protestantism, which makes sense. That makes sense. It didn't really make a lot of sense him saying he's Catholic. Also, look at the eyeliner, bro. Well, I guess it actually isn't eyeliner. Well, maybe it is. It's hard to tell, I guess. He was baptized. Wait, so in September 2016, he converted. In 19, he converted to Catholicism. So, like, oh, he's a practicing Catholic. He's a convert from 5 years ago who grew up dancing around and waving his hands, singing, Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. This guy probably doesn't even know, like, the basic mass words. This guy probably doesn't even know, like, 20 words of Latin. Which I'm not even a practicing... Dude, what a fake. This is like Cenk Uygur saying he's a Muslim when Cenk is an atheist who only brings up being so-called Muslim to justify, like, some weird narrative about his identity. And politics, by the way. He became persuaded that Catholicism was true. Augustine gave me a way to understand Christian faith in an intellectual way. Peter Thiel, who, like, was, like, freaking out on some news thing about the latest saint in the Catholic theology. I mean, it doesn't really say what... I mean, I don't want to get weird about which church he goes to. Okay, let's read this. I've been in Cincinnati. My friend J.D. Vance was baptized, received, and converted to Catholicism. It's been a long journey. He was brought up by Father Henry Stephen A Dominican, dude. He had a Dominican priest, dude. He's a Latinx, a Latine convert to Catholicism. I'm just kidding. St. Gertrude Priory. Renee Girard. Who are the Dominicans? What? He went. I mean, these guys look like pretty serious. But anyways, he's a practicing Catholic. Yeah, whatever you say, man.
$1 million to help resettle illegal immigrants? Are they look in the mirror a little bit and recognize Catholic bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are
no, the white Americans need to look in the mirror a little bit and ask themselves if they came here the right way. And whatever right way that exists now isn't how they came here anyways.
Are they worried about humanitarian concerns, or are they actually worried about their bottom line? We are going to enforce immigration law. We're going to protect.
Wait, so the Catholic bishops, they receive over $100 million to resettle illegal immigrants? Dude. But these guys want to give out government contracts for them to resettle illegal immigrants and deport them. Oh, but we give $100 million to Catholics to resettle.
The American people.
Yeah.
Donald Trump promised to do that, and I believe the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, if they're worried about the humanitarian costs of immigration enforcement, let them talk about the children who have been sex trafficked because of the wide open border of Joe Biden.
You personally
let them talk
support them
about
going into
people like
schools
Laken
and
Riley
churches.
who were brutally murdered. I support us.
And now it's a nebulous, like, victim figure of a horrible crime. And Laken Riley, who the dad of Laken Riley doesn't like how her name has been used. So, I mean, that includes Congress and the House putting into law this Laken Riley Act when her own dad said he doesn't like how her name is being used. It makes him angry. And we got, you know, Fox Eye Freddy over here bringing up Laken Riley's name too. It's like, this is like, actually, if they were like, you know, I mean, this is like, whenever they bring up anyone's name,
doing law enforcement against violent criminals, whether they're illegal immigrants or anybody else, in a way that keeps us safe. Let me ask this question, Margaret. Let's separate the immigration issue. If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
Yeah, what about, like, a teenager who got groomed into a gang? Like, a teenager who's, like, joined a gang. That's, I mean, I guess to join a gang, the stereotype is that you have to, like, be initiated through, like, some horrible crime, but I don't know. Probably a lot of people just, like, get let in and
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce
but
the
that
law
also
everywhere
has
to
a
protect
knock-on
Americans.
Effect, a chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has a chilling
in
effect
the
on
churches,
illegal
you think
immigrants
the
coming
U.S.
into our
Conference
country.
of Catholic Bishops are actively hiding criminals?
a chilling effect on illegal immigrants coming into our country. They want them to be so scared to come here that they just don't. How do they make them scared to come here? By making life for people who are here so horrible. But they aren't very good at being evil, but they are very evil.
I think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better.
There are 5 legal challenges already.
So that's kind of the insane thing, though. It's just common sense. We have to get rid of the Indians, the Native Americans, the indigenous people, too. It's just common sense. And I venture to say it was just common sense back in the 1830s, too, when it was like, it's just common sense that white people and Indians can't live together in peace. It's just common sense that eventually there's going to be conflict and we'll fight. It's just common sense we have to segregate white and black people. It's just come. And unfortunately, it is, on some level, I don't know if it's a majority, but on some level, common sense to millions of U.S. citizens that we have to deport a bunch of Native Americans.
Has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better.
There are 5 legal challenges already to one of the other immigration actions, the order on birthright citizenship. A federal judge appointed by Ron.
Oh, he's so devout, but he's a evangelical Protestant convert from 5 years ago. You're a devout Catholic when you converted, like, when you were 40. You found Catholicism in the smallest portion of, like, 10% of my life. I've been a devout Catholic. Oh, I'm sure he's learned so much. He has it all figured out. I'm a devout Catholic who is attacking senior officials in Catholicism because they are aware of the verse, feed your neighbor, or like Jesus was kind to the stranger.
Ronald Reagan, I think you'd agree, has some conservative credentials,
sure.
Paused the order to end birthright citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. How
Whoa, Ronald Reagan, let's go. Let's see.
do you reconcile this challenge to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution?
So I obviously disagree with that judge, and these things, some of them will be litigated. That's the nature of our constitutional system. But here's the basic idea of President Trump's view on this. If you are a lawful permanent resident or a legal immigrant who plans to stay, your children, of course, should become American citizens. But let's say you're the child of an ambassador. You don't become...
But that's not part of it.
Well, that is an
having to do
important
with kids of
principle.
diplomats.
But we're saying that that carve-out should apply to anybody who doesn't plan to stay here. If you come here on vacation and you have a baby in an American hospital, that baby doesn't become an American citizen. If you're an illegal alien and you come here temporarily, hopefully, your child does not become an American citizen.
Wait. You don't intend the illegal immigrants to be here forever, but trust me, some of them are going to stay. They intend to be here till they die, and they will. Some of them will. A lot of the people that you're deporting have every intention to stay in our country and just live peacefully. But it's your intention to get rid of them. But he's trying to...
Of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
You think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is... there are 5 legal challenges already to one of the other immigration actions, the order on birthright citizenship. A federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan.
Of our constitutional system. But here's the basic...
Has some conservative credentials,
sure.
Paused the order to end birthright citizenship.
Oh, I guess it's appointed by Ronald Reagan, but whatever.
Citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. How do you reconcile this challenge to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution?
So I obviously disagree with that judge, and these things, some of them will be litigated. That's the nature of our constitutional system. But here's the basic idea of President Trump's view on this. If you are a lawful permanent resident or a legal immigrant who plans to stay, your children, of course, should become American citizens. But let's say you're the child of an ambassador. You don't become...
But that's not part of it.
Well, that is an
important
principle. But we're saying that that carve-out should apply to anybody who doesn't plan to stay here.
That exception to birthright citizenship should apply to anybody who doesn't plan to stay here. Those people plan to stay here. You're the ones planning to get rid of them. You're the ones planning to deport them. If they didn't plan to stay here, wouldn't they just leave? It's not consistent.
If you come here on vacation and you have a baby in an American hospital, that baby doesn't become an American citizen. If you're an illegal alien and you come here temporarily, hopefully, your child does not become an American citizen by virtue of just having been...
No, they do become an American citizen. You're trying to take that away from them.
Born on American soil is a very basic principle in American immigration law that if you want to become an American citizen and you've done it the right way, and the American people in their collective wisdom...
Nah, it's not "and if you've done it the right way." Nope. That was made up like 30 years ago. That's like Patriot Act stuff. Almost.
issue of just having been born on American soil is a very basic principle in American immigration law that if
So the very basic principle in American immigration law. What about before there was immigration law? And what about what about the origins of American immigration law? The Chinese Exclusion Act? Anyone? The apparently Native Americans have somehow been implicated in this legal precedent of American immigration law. Like tribal law. I saw it, dude. Search is so busted. I guess maybe no one's really like covering this like front lines. Oh yeah, of course it's someone. Oh, we're debunking. Now I'm looking at. Okay, finally some group that will actually like mention what's being cited. Maybe not. I don't know. Let me go to news. Okay, let's see what this debunking is. So this debunking is like they said they weren't doing it, just like they said they didn't go to that school. Just like I'm saying I didn't just take a hit off of a vape now. They said there is no such plan in place, the rumors are unfounded, and there is no need to panic, Native Americans. But I guess here's the fundamental thing. So there's questions have been raised about whether Native Americans born in the U.S. have birthright citizenship if they live on sovereign tribal land, which is trust lands, which are federal lands, by the way. If they're like untaxed, quote unquote, Indians, which haven't existed for over 100 years. According to Chairman Greyhawk, these arguments are based on outdated 19th century legal provisions that precede the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. But yeah, why are they legal provisions? I just want to. They're just like. So I mean, they're pretending like the Citizen Act of 1924 like just ended the thing, but they are like citing some like tribal law immigration. Oh wow, apparently several people have been detained or questioned. But like they're unfounded. What's unfounded? Native Americans literally got detained and questioned in Navajo lands. I guess it's not Minnesota. Those rumors are unfounded. There's no plan to target Native Americans. It's just collateral damage, but they'll probably not be collateral deportees. So here it is. Where is it? Come on, bro. Just give me the law. But okay, but reportedly, the Trump administration openly questioned the U.S. citizenship of indigenous people as part of its defense of Trump's executive order to suspend birthright citizenship. And I wish they like put tribal or native or indigenous in the source they put there, but whatever. Yeah, in the filing. Here it is. Okay. Did they say Indian? Yeah, here we go. So this is what's being cited in the defense of the executive order to end birthright citizenship. Among many reasons why the plaintiff's position is incorrect, so the people are defending it. So they're saying the plaintiff attacking it is incorrect because the 14th Amendment harks to tandem language in the Civil Rights Act of 1866. What about the Civil Rights Act of 1950, 52 or whatever it was? And indeed, what about the 1924 Universal Amnesty and Citizenship for Native Americans? I think that makes like the plaintiff's position correct because those guys are Native Americans too. They just weren't. Anyways, but dude, bro, the Civil Rights Act of 1866. What about the Civil Rights Act of 19? What about MLK, bro? The Supreme Court has interpreted the act and the amendment coterminously, explaining the act served as the initial blueprint for the amendment, and that the amendment provided a constitutional basis for protecting the rights set out. The act provided, as relevant here, that all persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power, excluding Indians not taxed, are hereby declared to be citizens of the U.S. And so, I mean, if you think about it, illegal immigrants are indigenous Americans, aka Indians, who aren't taxed in that they don't have the proper documentation to like pay every single tax that a normal citizen does, presumably. So I mean, the parallels are like pretty broad. I mean, illegal immigrants, so-called, are Indians not taxed. And so, I mean, these guys, like it's 1850, they're like, get them out. They don't even want to give them citizenship. It's going to be, it was until 1924 before natives got citizenship. So if they're on the same kind of time frame, it's going to be 50 years from now before the U.S. gets around to amnesty and citizenship for all Indians not taxed. Which isn't good. There's a different way. Legal immigrants don't have to just wait around for the U.S. to be nice enough to give them citizenship for 75 years, like the Native Americans did between the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and 1924. The illegal immigrants, we live there. There is an international community. There are human rights. There is the United Nations. There is The Hague. There is war crimes. There is an international precedent for universal humanity and rights. So it isn't 1866 anymore. But make no mistake, these guys going after the illegal immigrants, they have the hate of 1866. So there shouldn't be any waiting around 60 years for them to get nice enough to give a citizenship like the Native Americans did. There should be a 5 years or less event, which the outcome has universal amnesty and citizenship for all illegal immigrants, and citizenship for other people too. There should be an independent, there should be a balkanization of the United States, and it is necessary for that to happen so that people can demand citizenship in the place they live and they have a right to live. Dreamers, we'll call it Dreamerstan. But that's just like, hypotheticals. I'm just saying 10 to 15 million people. You don't have to wait around 70 years. Just take the abuse until you get citizenship out of the kindness of their hearts. And also, it's funny thing about like not subject to any foreign power is like, what about people with dual citizenship? Like, if we're talking about Indians not taxed, like what about not subject to any foreign power? That's people with like dual citizenship. Like, I don't even have to say the country I'm thinking. The phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof in the 14th Amendment is best read to exclude the same individuals who are excluded by the act, i.e. those who are subject to any foreign power and Indians not taxed. Yet, under plaintiff's view, the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which was governing law until 1940, was apparently unconstitutional because plenty of individuals born in the United States and subject to federal regulatory jurisdiction are also subject to any foreign power, a disqualifying condition under the 1866 Civil Rights Act. Are they saying the 1866 Civil Rights Act is constitutional? The Civil Rights Act that enabled Jim Crow, those civil rights, and that in 1940, maybe 1940 is when a different Civil Rights Act was, or at least this was rescinded, but 1950s around the time segregation ended, and there was a Civil Rights Act around that time. Are they saying, what about that one? Is that one not also constitutional? Literally calling 1866 Civil Rights Act, claiming that's still constitutional, even though it stopped being governing law 80 years ago. 85 years ago, it stopped being governing law. And he wants to say it's constitutional in 2025. It's just it's kind of astonishing. The court held because members of Indian tribes owe immediate allegiance to their tribes. And by the way, that isn't the case anymore. All federally recognized citizens are, their trust lands are federal, their governments are federally funded. Their immediate allegiance is to the federal government, of which tribes are little, Indian forts, military bases, nation building projects. It's whatever you want to call them. But it's all federal. So yeah, I mean, he's citing Elk versus Wilkins. Confirms that the children of non-resident aliens lack a constitutional birthright because the Indians owed immediate allegiance to their tribes. They were subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are not constitutionally entitled to citizenship. And they're arguing that's constitutional? What about the 1924 thing where we all became citizens? Tribes occupy an intermediate position between foreign states and U.S. states. No, they don't. Dude, they're tertiary branches of the federal government. There's the Department of State, or whatever it's called, the Executive Department. There's the Department of Interior. And then there's 570 some federally recognized tribes. They are tertiary branches under the Department of the Interior to the federal government. They are not an intermediate position between a foreign state and a U.S. state. They're the furthest thing from a state. They go with the nation-to-nation relationship thing, but a nation is not a state. It's not. A state is a political apparatus. A nation is a people. And the tribes and their government centers and their reservations, whatever they aren't states. Because in Oklahoma, before Oklahoma was a state, when all the white people applied for it, the Native Americans applied to have a Native American state. The one Native American state in the whole world. They tried to get it in like 19 something. And the US said, no, you can't have a state. You're going to be limited to being a tribe in a nation forever. There's one federal. It's just, this is so incoherent, but they're defending what was done through executive order. So they don't even have to be convincing. They can cite stuff that was overturned 80 years ago as if it's still constitutional. Yeah, and even in 1831, they're called domestic dependent nations. I.e., they don't have a state, and we're not going to let them get one. We're just going to make it Oklahoma and let the white people run it, and we're not going to let the natives run it. The U.S. connection with the children of illegal immigrants and temporary visitors is weaker than its connection with members of Indian tribes. If the latter link is insufficient for birthright citizenship, the former certainly is. But the latter isn't insufficient for birthright citizenship. It was in 1831 or whenever, but 1924 there was universal citizenship for all Native Americans, and their children got birthright citizenship too. If the latter link is insufficient, the United States connection with members of Indian tribes, if that's insufficient for birthright citizenship, the U.S. connection with children of illegal aliens certainly is, but it's not. Dude, they're really neo-Jacksonites, dude. Neo-Andrew Jacksonites. But it isn't 1824 anymore. It isn't. There's an international community. It's not 200 years ago. And they talk about natives being like obsessed with 200 years ago. Y'all are the ones talking about 200 years ago. Talking about that's why we get to deport illegal immigrants. Y'all are the ones talking about 200 years ago. Wong Kim Ark? Wait, are they going to cite some like Chinese Exclusion Act too? Okay, whatever. But I guess that's the section of it. But yeah, it's like he just said that children of Native Americans, according to a law that was rescinded in 1940, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 or whatever. He said according to that constitutional 100 years after it was rescinded, according to that, bro, the children of Native Americans, because of their allegiance to their tribes, is enough to say we don't deserve citizenship. Or our children do.
If you want to become an American citizen, and you've done it the right way, and the American people in their collective wisdom have welcomed you into our national community, then you become a citizen. But temporary residents, people who come in here, whether legally or illegally, and don't plan to stay, their children should become American citizens. I don't know any country that does that or why we would be different.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded
unique
by.
Country.
This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world. No country says that temporary visitors, their children, will be given complete access to the benefits and blessings of American citizenship. America should actually look out for the interests of our citizens first. And that means, again, if you're here permanently and lawfully, your kid becomes an American citizen. If you're not here permanently, if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and don't plan to be, why would we make those people's children American citizens permanently?
I want to ask you about refugee admissions, which were just suspended by the president. That has nothing to do with the U.S. border. Refugee screening takes 18 to 24 months to go through. They are heavily vetted. Left literally at the airport this week were thousands of Afghans who some of whom had worked with the United States government and were promised to come here. When you talked to us in August, you said, I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
No, but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand by
concern
it?
as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that
So
we
no.
know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These
It's
people are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he
Yeah.
wasn't. I
Yeah.
don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really
But,
care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
2 weeks ago,
I don't care. It's all about what I want and what I feel. And it doesn't matter how wrong it is. I want it, and that's it. End of story. I want it. The American people want it. It's called democracy. The majority of Americans want to get rid of the Indians. Welcome to democracy. It's all about what we feel and what we want. And who
Actually look out for the interests of our citizens first. And that means, again, if you're here permanently and lawfully, your kid becomes an American citizen. If you're not here permanently, if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and don't plan to be, why would we make those people's children American citizens permanently?
I want to ask you about refugee admissions, which were just suspended by the president. That has nothing to do with the U.S. border. Refugee screening takes 18 to 24 months to go through. They are heavily vetted. Left literally at the airport this week were thousands of Afghans, some of whom had worked with the United States government and were promised to come here.
Hey, what's up, Tuster Wars guy? My video is out of view because that's just what I do. But I'm just watching this video, talking about immigration and stuff. But you already asked me about D&D, and I haven't played it. But you said something about wanting me to be like the villain guy, use some like, because I had like red lights on. I don't have them on right now. But it's also kind of mysterious having my video like up there. And I just have like these posters and stuff. I mean, that's the main thing. Yeah, no, it's cool, bro. I mean, you're one of 4 people who have followed me, so that's, I just like looked to saw your name. But yeah, D&E's cool. Nah, you good, bro. But yeah, if y'all, I mean, yeah, if y'all do play D&D, you can just send me a whisper or something on here. You still want me to play it, but yeah, just looking at this video.
Talked to us in August, you said, I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened.
Hey, sorry, I was texting someone back for like 2 minutes, and so I really didn't hear any of this.
The interests of our citizens first, and that means, again, if you're here.
So I'm not interested in just no time. No, I have time to play D&D. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I'm also like kind of like, yeah. I don't know. A little in Discord and voice. What's a Discord? I can join that. All right, I'll give you an ad, bro. But yeah, on Wednesdays or Fridays. Before. Yeah, that might be fun. Do you ever stream it? Or do you just like play it? Wait, you need to see the face. I honestly keep it off so I can like vape. Because it just, I look like a total loser, like, you know, like oral fixation that. Yeah, if y'all are down with me to stream it, that I would, but I just added you. I'm called like the ignoble some numbers or something. But yeah, if I could stream it. Well, yeah, I mean, I look fine, but like, I don't feel like I don't know. I think about like IRL and people just like watching me like chain vape. They would be judging type thing.
permanently and lawfully, your kid becomes an American citizen. If you're not here permanently, if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and don't plan to be, why would we make those people's children American citizens permanently?
I want to ask you about refugee admissions.
Yeah, and so earlier Vance in here said, if you're not here permanently, so earlier he said, like, if you're not planning to be here permanently, your kid shouldn't be a citizen. And so he brought up, like, diplomats' kids, etc. But, like, illegal immigrants are planning to be here permanently, and they aren't going to deport them all. Some of them will be here permanently, and they all have the intention to stay. It's them who have the intention to not let them be here permanently. So it's like, why would you make those people's children American citizens if you're not here permanently? Some of them will be here permanently, and you'll still deny their kids citizenship, because it's not really about that.
Permanently. If you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and don't plan to be, why would we make those people's children American citizens permanently?
I want to ask.
If they don't like you, two options: leave the stream or learn to respect the streamer. Yeah, I mean, that's for sure for like a viewer. I mean, like more like, because like a few years ago, I was like trying this streaming out thing, and then people would ask me like, well, what's your hobby? What do you do for fun? I'm like, well, you know, sometimes I do like the podcast streamer thing, but I never wanted to tell them about it or show them it. But yeah, I mean, Twitch also has like TOS about like doing intoxicants on stream. So like, I mean, this is just like a nicotine vape, but like, I think it's like, I don't know, like how many hits of this do I take before it becomes excessive, according to TOS? Well, I appreciate it, man. You seem cool too.
Ask you about refugee admissions, which were just suspended by the president. That has nothing to do with the U.S. border. Refugee screening takes 18 to 24 months to go through. They are heavily vetted. Left literally at the airport this week were thousands of Afghans, some of whom had worked with the United States.
Wait, this week there were thousands of Wait, wasn't that 4 years ago? What? Oh, refugee screening takes 18 to 24 months. And so there's thousands of Afghans who just this week were left at the airport. You mean a C-17 couldn't bring all these guys in a timely manner, even when they're packed in like this? Oh, am I still active or retired? The military age male thing, I'm not a veteran. That's more commentary on like conscription in other countries. And so like, for example, I'm 28. So like in Ukraine, for example, I would be a military age male. I'm not a veteran. But yeah, I'm down to hear some total bullshit.
Government and were promised to come here. When you talked to us in August, you said, I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly.
Oh, so Custer Wars guy at 94 says, I have a friend who's in the military in Germany because he streams and doesn't like Trump. He had to take down his stream or get fired. I mean, yeah. 4 years ago, he was okay to stream. Yeah, that switching up like that's kind of cringe. Like I can see like it being the policy, like you can't be on social media if you're active service type thing or like a employee. I mean that's a little draconian, but I could see that. But like to switch up because of the content of his streams when it's just like, you know, an opinion on the presidential candidate. Total First Amendment abuse, military or not. Oh, wait, so is he like an American in Germany? Or is he like a German in Germany? But yeah, I mean, I guess I assume he's an American if he's part of the First Amendment. Yeah, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, it is. But like most people, when they're faced with like free speech things or First Amendment things, it's easier for them to just like I don't know, just like comply because, you know, they can take his job away from him. They can take his, you know, whatever away from him. It's called political tolerance. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know much about the military, but if I just happen to be born someplace in this world, I'm the age where people get conscripted and stuff, which is yeah, for sure. Sure.
Vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during.
Decency is non-existent today. Yeah, I mean, in politics especially, or like political kind of positions, and the military, I mean, it's non-partisan, but it's like a in the whole national security thing. So it's like there's certain lines you have to take and opinions you have to either not voice or just have. I do wonder what's wrong with America, and I have a couple ideas sometimes, every now. And, you know, sometimes I wonder what's right with America. And I also have ideas that.
The campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand by
concern
it?
as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that
So
we
no.
know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These
It's
people are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago.
No, not just like those guys. The thousands of Afghans who apparently have been waiting 24 months. They've been doing it the right way for 24 months. Standing in line, getting their papers, getting vetted, doing it the right way for 24 months. People who are in danger in their country because they probably collaborated with the U.S. During its occupation and nation building government. You know, the Taliban took over Afghanistan. It's like they're the same people like Vietnam. Like the people who fled Vietnam after the war, it's those kinds of people who are trying to leave Afghanistan. The same kind of, because that's their context. Yeah. 2 p.m. Tuesday. I work on Tuesdays. Or did you say you have it on Thursdays too? Or Wednesday? We could talk some other time. I can give you more of my schedule, but I actually do work on Tuesdays at that time. But yeah, I'm down for the idea of being a dark overlord. I'll try my best and follow the GM's lead.
He was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't.
Yeah, and so I don't know what guy he's talking about, but it was probably some guy that, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe there are some parallels with the Afghanistans trying to leave now, but I don't know. I don't even know who he's talking about. But
I don't want.
But again, it's like the Afghan. I mean, you know, this is like a lot of women and children, and some of them are like men, like military age men. But like, do you think these women and children are gonna plan this attack or whatever? No, they're like the refugees from Vietnam, the refugees from Korea, the refugees from various South American countries. When I don't really know, like Grenada or whatever, I don't know. But like when the U.S. pulls out of a country, it is militarily in, like Afghanistan, like Vietnam. The people that leave there, you know, one might argue, you know, they did work for the U.S. while you were in their country, and they can't come to your country after you lose and they're in danger of the new government who they were treasonous of, like retroactively. Like those people definitely deserve protection, even if they're like just a bunch of corrupt people that sat at a desk, which is probably some of the guys in Afghanistan.
My children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other.
Yeah, maybe Friday. Just send me a message on Discord, and we can talk about it later.
American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
2 weeks ago, you were on Fox News, and you said if you protested peacefully on January 6th and had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. Did you counsel the president against these blanket pardons for 1,500 people?
Well, Margaret, I noticed
including those who committed violence.
Margaret, I noticed that you cut off the thing that I said immediately after that. The full quote is that, of course, there are gray areas. And here's the nature of the gray area. Merrick Garland's Department of Justice denied constitutional protections in the prosecutions. There were double standards in how sentences were applied to the J6 protesters versus other groups. What the president said consistently on the campaign is that he was going to look at a case-by-case.
Oh, now it's about January 6th, so I don't really care. So yeah, I mean, it's just didn't it at some point say he just doesn't care? He's like putting America first. Let's see, where were they talking about Afghanistan?
No, but there are 30,000 people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary concern as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people.
If they were vetted. Are you saying the Afghans who literally collaborated with the U.S. for like 20 years, the Afghans who are the former officials of a government we spent billions of dollars and 2 decades of our time working on a nation building project, those are the guys who apparently, if we let them in, they're all gonna plan attacks? I don't think so. I mean, making them stay there after 24 months of doing it the right way and standing in line, that's way more the kind of thing that results in what he's talking about. If you just let them come here, 1, they'd be safe, but 2, they would be eternally grateful, probably. Like,
party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted.
And now he doesn't want his kids to live in a neighborhood with immigrants. Well, now I know why he moved out of the South to the bougie Northeast. But now, I mean, he's in D.C., bro. Aren't there a bunch of immigrants in D.C.?
And because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
2 weeks ago.
It's like, I don't care. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me. And that's the person you brought up in reference to 2,400 Afghans who have been waiting 2 years, or thousands of Afghans who have been waiting at the for 24 months rather. 18 to 24 months, heavily vetted. Nothing to do with the U.S. border. Refugees waiting 18 to 24 months in a government we spent 2 decades in and billions of dollars collaborating with those people who are at the airport right now wanting to come to our country. JD Vance says, I don't really care, Margaret, and I don't want that person in my country. Like, that's some crazy stuff. Instead of actually talking about Afghan refugees in any nuanced way, he just makes them parallel to some guy who planned something and he doesn't want them in this country, despite everything that happened before 2020. Like, despite the year 2000 to 2020 in Afghanistan and the U.S. literally being there the whole time, or like around those years. But I mean, he might, the average American might just not want that person in their country despite that. But I don't know. I mean, they did a lot of service for our country, so like, I don't know. The average American might be like, yeah, that's like, you're telling me the Taliban took over and our allies in the region you're not letting leave? The average American might actually be able to sympathize with that. I don't know. It's crazy. Sad.
President Trump says he's directing his administration to take immediate action against.
All right, appreciate you. Yeah, let's cause some chaos. Touch Star Wars guy. Let's do it. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. I mean, D&D, I've never tried it, but people love it, so I'm sure it'll be fun.
Colombia's president and his supporters, including tariffs, a travel ban, and visa sanctions. The move comes after Colombia denied entry to 2 C-17 military planes carrying undocumented immigrants, forcing the planes to turn around midair. Colombian President Gustavo Petro said Sunday that the U.S. cannot treat migrants as criminals and that Colombia would accept migrants on civilian planes. The news comes just days after the White House posted these images of migrants boarding a C-17 for deportation. With the Trump...
Oh, so it is a C-17. And so, like, a C-17, like, did they have the image of them sitting in it? But, like, they didn't pack it in like, this one. They had, like, a 2-person wide, there's, like, a line of chairs here, a line of chairs here, a 2-person wide corridor here, a line of chairs, you know, on either side. So like all of these middle people are empty. So it's like around 100 seats or something. So they have like 10 to 20 of workers doing the plane, and then they have like 90 immigrants going in the C-17. A plane that it costs $23,000 to operate. They're not, you know, saying this is a propaganda image. This is a propaganda, you know, 18 to 24 months later, you know, there's still going to be a bunch of these guys waiting to get deported. Like there's a bunch of these guys waiting to get on the C-17 to America in Afghanistan.
Trump administration hailing the move as a promise kept.
We're getting the bad, hard criminals out.
Yeah, promises made, promises kept. Nope. Earlier in the stream, we were listening to, you know, the borders are, and he was saying, we gotta be realistic about it. We're not gonna get rid of everybody, but we gotta try our best. He already said that the promise won't be kept.
We're getting the bad, hard.
They won't deport them all, just like they didn't build the wall. It's just propaganda.
Hard criminals out.
2 flights carrying migrants landed in Guatemala City on Friday, but a planned flight to Mexico was blocked by the Mexican government last week. And Brazil's foreign ministry on Sunday called the process a degrading treatment of the Brazilians deported from the U.S. The State Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. ICE told the Journal that it plans to use the military planes to increase deportations. But some are questioning whether the use of military aircraft is necessary, since the U.S. has been using passenger planes like these for years to deport migrants. So here's what we know. The C-17 is a large Air Force plane.
So the borders are brought up the quote-unquote DOD piece to help with transportation. So apparently ICE badges and guns, his words, more of those guys don't have to focus on transportation, and their badges and guns can be at the border preventing crossings. Apparently that's why there's a C-17 at $23,000 an hour moving 100 out of 15 million people they want to deport.
And that's typically used to transport.
And then even when they flew the plane to Colombia or wherever else, Colombia told them to turn the plane around. They didn't. The $23,000 an hour flight didn't even work. And so what? Now we have to confront Colombia with the military? What's next? We're going to send a C-17 with bombs and not 100 deportees?
For troops and cargo, like this tank. While the Air Force says it's designed to hold about 100 paratroopers with their gear, it can also carry more than 800 passengers if needed, as seen here during the U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan. On Friday, 2 C-17s...
So if they can get 800 people, if they literally did that every single time they flew one of these, it would still take like 1,000 people a day to even get it to 1 million people. Like if they did one C-17 flight every single day, 800 people, how far would they get over 4 years? So 800, and that's packed in like this, which is very dangerous, by the way. I can tell. Apparently, some flight guy in the Afghanistan draw said something along the lines of, "It's impressive you got off the ground," with how packed it was. So 800, one C-17 flight a day, over 365 days, over, okay, let's do that first, and then over 4 years. They get to 1.16 million people, and just 1 hour, let's say it takes like 6 hours for the flight. Yeah, times like so 6 hours, like $120,000 flight, which is cheap for a C-17, by the way. I assume. It has a total cost to just do 1 million people if they're packed in like this in C-17s, 800 of them per flight. Ooh. That's $140 billion for just 1 million of them. If they're going like this and not, it's not in this video, but yeah, there's like 100 people on it. They're just sitting in the chairs, and these planes like have a capacity for like 100 personnel, and they're sitting in the personnel chairs.
With about 80 migrants each, arrived in Guatemala City from Texas and Arizona. As for the price tag, the Department of Defense says the C-17 costs about $20,000 an hour to operate. That's more than double a typical repatriation flight, which costs about $8,500 an hour, according to ICE. Both President Trump and his border czar Tom Homan have pledged to use the U.S. military to enforce immigration laws, and the White House is deploying frontline combat troops to the southern border.
Every time you enter this country illegally, you violate a crime under Title 8, United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem.
Yeah, and so summary there, all the dreamers and every other undocumented person is categorically a criminal, even if they don't commit any crimes besides being in the country. Them being in this country makes them illegal. They are categorically illegal. They are categorically criminal. But then when they try to make it sound less mean, they're like, well, you know, some of them commit actual crimes too.
You violate a crime under Title 8, United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem.
Yeah, and so Trump's doing the tariff thing. And Trump doesn't want to start any new wars. So I have a feeling this guy also said, you know, if he said, oh, he was asked about Colombia. He was like, oh, they're going to take it. And it's like, that's kind of what do you mean by that is what the journalist asked. But eventually he said, you know, if they don't take them, we'll send them to like a third safe country. So they'll just send them to a country they aren't even from. They don't have citizenship in, but it'll be some country that's playing ball with the U.S. to send a bunch of people there since their countries of origin won't take them. And in the meantime, they're going to get hit with tariffs and probably won't be a war over that. Because this is completely voluntary by the U.S. All the U.S. has to do is say amnesty for all, citizenship for all. We have 10 to 15 million more people, and we're one step closer to 1 billion people, so we can actually compete with China and India. They have 1 billion people. We're not going to compete with that until we have 1 billion people. And deporting 10 to 15 million of them, who are in some ways likely more capable than the average person, certainly more capable than me. My spot in here is secure. I can just chill in the U.S. because I have citizenship. They have to really work for it, or just work to even survive here. So the U.S. is never going to compete until it has 1 billion people, and right now it's busy trying to deport 10 to 15 million people at the cost of like $20,000 per flight hour. I don't know, man. Just not great moves. Not great moves. Human migration.
This is breaking news. ICE carrying out its first nationwide operation under the Trump administration, resulting in over 1,000 arrests. Arrests happening in multiple states, from New York to California and Illinois to Colorado. The arrests come as the Trump administration is moving rapidly to fulfill its promise to launch an historic mass deportation operation. Chicago's governor says he, too, wants violent criminals out of the country, but he's raising concerns about how the administration is carrying things out.
And I've said many times, violent criminals who are undocumented in this country should be deported. There is a federal law that allows that deportation. But when we're talking about undocumented people who have been living law-abiding lives and raising families in the United States, we need comprehensive immigration reform. We need to give them an opportunity to stay in this country legally.
This all comes as President Trump's border czar Tom Homan is now on the ground in Chicago to oversee the arrests himself. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Anna Koyman in New York City. It's Sunday, the 26th of January, 3 o'clock on the East Coast, and it's time for News Nation Now. We do have so much to cover today, so we're going to get right to that breaking news on Trump's immigration enforcement plans and News Nation's Mills.
Comprehensive immigration reform. We need to give them an opportunity to stay in this country legally.
Yeah, of course.
This all comes as President Trump's
need to give them an opportunity to stay in this country legally. And waiting in line at the DMV for 5 years. I don't know.
Border czar Tom Homan is now on the ground in Chicago to oversee the arrests himself. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Anna Koyman in New York City. It's Sunday, the 26th of January, 3 o'clock on the East Coast. And it's time for News Nation Now. We do have so much to cover today, so we're going to get right to that breaking news on Trump's immigration enforcement plans. And News Nation's Mills Hayes is live there for us in Chicago. What can you tell us about the scale of these operations and the specific criteria being used to identify these individuals who are being arrested?
Hey, Anna, well, Chicago has some of the strongest sanctuary city protections, which prevent city police officers from cooperating with immigration agents. And Border czar Tom Homan is in the Windy City this weekend working with other federal agencies to make good on his promise of mass deportations. But Homan wasn't alone today. Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove
To quote-unquote make good on his promise of mass deportations. If any other country in the world was saying something like that, the U.S., I mean, if we had a Democrat president, at least, they would be like human rights abuser, dictatorship, the promise of mass deportations. That doesn't sound very free and democratic to me.
was also in Chicago on Sunday to see firsthand the operations. Federal agencies like the FBI, DEA, ATF, and the U.S. Marshals are all working with the Department.
They're trying to create a new organization called like the Border Security Force. It's not even like it's just like a military wing or a militarized wing of ICE.
Of Homeland Security. The Deputy Attorney General said in a statement, we will support federal, state, and local levels who join this critical mission to take.
Duo side says, at least it's just criminals. I mean, if you're the type of person who think they're categorically criminal by virtue of being in this country without documentation, you know, that's fine. That's how you feel about them, that's all right. But I feel about them like, I don't care if they're criminals. That's what it means.
Back our communities. We will use all available tools to address obstruction and other unlawful impediments. The city of Chicago and its mayor, Brandon Johnson, have been adamant about the city's sanctuary city status. Democratic City Alderman Raymond Lopez slammed Johnson for his position earlier.
He's not concerned about the long-term undocumented
Let's see what the Democrat has to say.
Mexican immigrants that are here who've been waiting for a path to come out of the shadows. He's not concerned about the dreamers who have.
Duo size says, it took me 7 years to come to America legally. Well, you know, I wish it wasn't that hard for you, man. I wish it was a lot easier for you, and I want it to be a lot easier for everyone else too. You shouldn't have to wait in line 7 years at a DMV to get your driver's license or whatever. It doesn't take 7 years to vet somebody. But when you know, whatever made it take that long, I wish it took shorter, man. That sucks.
Higher standards than even asylum seekers for how they have to behave in communities. He openly welcomed the city of Chicago to the asylum seekers that have come here over the last 4 years, spending $600 million to meet their every whim and need while neglecting his own African-American communities on the South and West Side.
And Anna, a surprising guest with Border czar Tom Homan today. Dr. Phil, the reality star, took to X to say that he was embedded with the Border czar for ICE operations here in Chicago. We have also reached out about embedding with ICE and are hoping that they will get back to us. Anna?
Yeah, of course, we want to see how everything's going down, too. How are immigrant rights groups reacting to all this, Mills?
Well, you can imagine they're not happy right now, and they say that many undocumented migrants are avoiding going to work because they don't want to get rounded up by.
What do the undocumented migrants think of this? And not just like the few nonprofits that are like on their side.
They will get back to us. Anna?
Yeah, of course, we want to see how everything's going down, too. How are immigrant rights groups reacting to all this, Mills?
Well, you can imagine they're not happy right now, and they say that many undocumented migrants are avoiding going to work because they don't want to get rounded up by ICE. And on Saturday, several immigrant rights groups sued ICE seeking an injunction prohibiting certain types of immigration raids in Chicago. Vice President J.D. Vance was on CBS News this morning defending the Trump administration's decision to allow ICE agents in churches, hospitals, and schools.
If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce the law everywhere to protect Americans.
Effect, a chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has.
I saw this, but I need to end stream basically. So maybe one more video. Texas governor. Let's see what
Joining me right now in the Sunday Morning Future.
Let's see what Hot Wheels has to say. Can we get a camera where we see him sitting in a wheelchair? Dude, look at, why is every politician a nursing home patient?
Greg Abbott. Governor, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Maria.
Have you seen a change? Tell us what has happened since President Trump was sworn in as our 47th president.
Maria, I don't think there's ever been a more sudden and swift change in any government operation than under President Trump when he took the oath of office. I would say overnight, but on the first hour of his tenure as president, we saw the change where there were military sent to the border. The military were blocking people from crossing the border illegally. The numbers of people who crossed on the 19th of January dropped dramatically on the 20th of January. They have continued to drop, and every single day, President Trump, working with Tom Homan, they've been deporting people to the countries they came from. But to show how Texas is a partner in all this process, on the hour that President Trump took office, Texas was deploying more buoys in the Rio Grande to deter and deny illegal entry into the country.
Yeah, deter and deny. Like, how does that? Wait, people are just gonna get caught up in, like, I don't know. I guess the buoys don't trap people like these ones would. Like, I don't know. They're just gonna walk. You know, this is the wall. This 8 years later, this is the wall. Like a provisional military style barrier is the wall we got 8 years later. Like, and all they have to do is find the next place where there isn't that stuff, because it's like thousands and thousands of miles long.
The change, Maria, is this. We suddenly now have a commander-in-chief who cares about national security, who cares about securing the border, who's going to enforce the law. And importantly, he has a governor in a state in Texas that will be a partner with the Trump administration. We will assist in the arrest, the detention, and the deportation of people coming across the border illegally.
And deportations are now well underway. Some have been put on planes. Are they going back to Mexico? Where are you sending?
They going to Mexico. Dude, if they had a real journalist, she would at least say, like, Colombia. Like, I heard they were being taken to Colombia. But it's just like, are they going to Mexico? That's everywhere south of the border, right?
Them give us a sense of the practical process that is happening right now.
So hundreds up to close to 1,000 are being sent back across the border on a daily basis under the Trump administration. Some are going to Mexico. Others, you will see flights that are going to Guatemala and some other Central American countries. And the Trump administration is going to be sending them back to their home countries and demanding compliance by these countries that they take back.
So the U.S. is walking around demanding compliance from other countries to carry out its deportations. Man, I want, if 10 to 15 million illegal immigrants declared their own independent state with universal citizenship for all, including them, but even maybe other Americans can live in the one Native American state too. I wonder if those countries getting strong-armed by the United States would, like, recognize such a breakaway country. But the U.S. is on its way to balkanization. Whether I wish it, the first balkanization being a country for the illegal immigrants within the United States, whether that's going to be it or not, America's headed towards balkanization. It can't go around strong-arming people. And there's 10 to 15 million people faced with a very real reality that some of them must be thinking, we need to resist collectively, because they want citizenship, because they can't just wait around 70 years for universal amnesty and citizenship like Native Americans did between the Civil Rights Act of 1866 that said Indians didn't have citizenship because they weren't taxed and had a foreign allegiance to their tribe. That was what the U.S. That's what the U.S. viewed Native Americans like between 1866 and 1924 when we got universal citizenship. I don't know exactly how that was going to tie in.
These countries that they take back the people who cross the border illegally. And no.
Yeah. Anyways, the first native. Come on, guys. There's only one Jewish state in the whole world, but there isn't even one indigenous American state. We don't even have one American state, one Native American state. Come on, guys. I mean, they have one. What the heck? It's the one state in the world, and we can't even have one of our own. But hey, 10 to 15 million people, there's a path to citizenship. It's called American balkanization and getting your own state. But yeah, I mean, that's Fantasyland. Anyways, thanks for the few people that showed up in my stream. So yeah, I just want peace for everybody. I want everyone to be able to live wherever they want. And anything that edges us towards conflict and war and strong-arming countries saying they were demanding compliance, that's not my style. That's not my style. I actually believe that war can end. Like, I believe that. It's not, I don't think that's just idealism. So I mean, that's just me. And that's what I try to operate on, even though I get a little